Hello, I am Mystic Orange and this is video hashtag 616. In this video, I'm back to, talking about 16. It always feels good to talk about 16 for once in a while. I feel like this show gives me comfort each time. Also, make sure to check out my previous videos. I've made videos based on Winx Club and Scooby-Doo, as well as I made reviews about a new show called 321 Penguins. After doing those projects, reviewing 16 feels like a therapy. That's why I feel like this show deserves more recognition than it deserves. That's why I would say don't sleep on 16. Anyway, in this video, I'm reviewing 16 Season 1, Episode 14, Stupid over Cupid. So this episode seems to be a Valentine's Day episode, and I think it's ironic that it's a 14th episode. Because, Valentine's Day happens on the 14th of February. And I do like the title, Stupid Over Cupid. I think it's really clever. I think it's playing on the word Stupid Cupid, which is a song. And I like the rhyming of the word stupid and Cupid. But is it questionable that this is a Valentine's Day episode? We did have a Christmas episode, so, I'm not... I don't have a big deal with this episode, but it's considering that it's February now. I'm just thinking about the future episodes, that's all. So we start off the episode at Stick It. In this scene, Jude and Jonesy try to scam some customers in buying a heart-shaped boxes. Customers thinking it's probably chocolate, but it's not, it's meat. I mean, did they need to scam the customers? They could just, sell heart-shaped meats to the customers. I mean, in this shop they sell kebabs. Wouldn't you not sell like shami kebabs in heart shapes? And I know that Jude sells kebabs, but could he not sell burgers too? Because, he sells meat, so wouldn't he naturally sell burgers as well? And what he could do is sell burgers in a heart shape. Anyway, Josie plans to have a Valentine's Day with Nikki. We'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, the angry cowboy returns with his box. The cowboy states that the product isn't chocolate. I mean, that's on the cowboy's fault, What did he think Jude will be selling? Did he think that Jude will be selling chocolate? He is in a kebab shop, for God's sake. And after Jude, making a lie that's, terrible, but the cowboy still believes it, the cowboy asks for flowers. I think this cowboy is kind of dumb, Did he think Jude will be selling flowers? And then, Jude, delivers a bouquet of flowers, but, it's kebabs. And the cowboy is too dumb enough to take it. So after that, we get to the theme song. While that's happening, let's give me a little bit of an intermission. Make sure to leave your comments in the comment section of the videos. I love reading your guys' comments. I find them really uplifting and, encouraging. And I love the involvement in my Whisper Rewrite episode. And it will be fun to have a community in this channel. So it's nice to have you guys engage with each other about these favorite shows. Now the intermission is over, let's get back into this episode. So after the theme song, the gang are at the Lemon. So Wyatt is at the Lemon. He's booking up a dinner reservation with his Valentine's Day with Serena. Mind you, he's 15 years old and Serena's 2 years older. Also, she's his boss. I think I've mentioned this multiple times in the 16 reviews. I think you're sick of me saying it, but it's kind of questionable. But that aside, I think, Wyatt plans his Valentine's Day with Serena. He booked a dinner reservation at the sushi restaurant. And I don't think Hero's all that pleased. He also has card and flowers for her. Also, not to forget the chocolates. Jen, Caitlin, and Jude seem supportive of this. They think it's sweet. However, Nikia and Jonesy don't seem supportive towards this. And you know what? I kind of agree with Nikia and Jonesy. It does seem like, Wyatt's going overboard with this thing. I do think Nikki and Jonesy were funny about this. I like Nikki's line about a plane being up in the sky, and Jonesy following this up by saying, "I'm a total wuss." I thought that was hilarious. I don't know, I'm kind of feeling iffy about Wyatt here. Like, it seems it seems to me that he's totally like love struck about Serena, like he's totally like obsessed with her. I don't know. This is reminding me of a video someone did about Friends, and I can't help but like compare Wyatt to another character from Friends, and that's Ross. And this makes me think of a situation where like Ross had a relationship with Emily. I will link this video is where it was done by The Take. And it seemed like, Ross, is like love bombing Emily. And this is how I think Wyatt is doing with Serena. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Wyatt is love bombing Serena? I guess it's not as serious as Ross did with Emily, but I'm not too sure. I do think it's interesting that Jonesy uses the word boss. I do not know if that's a commonly used word. It's probably a Canadian word. By the way, wuss means a pathetic person. Caitlin thinks it's totally sweet that he is doing something like this. It seems like, Wyatt is making Serena seem special. But I don't know, it seems a bit weird. And I can see, like, Nikki and Jonesy's perspective on this. Nikki says, like, it seems like Wyatt is pulling out all the cliche of the book. With all the, like, dinner reservations, cards, flowers, chocolates. It seems really basic. And Jonesy says that, like, Wyatt shouldn't pull out all the arsenal in one date. He should, have one for, when he screws up or something. And, I kind of agree with him. Anyway, for the next bit, Jonesy, is planning to have a Valentine's Day with Nikki. However, Nikki refuses to go on a Valentine's Day with Jonesy. She's just not into Valentine's Day in general. Like, she had too many bad experiences. But for this bit, I am confused by the other guy's reaction towards this. Jonesy mentioned this in the earlier scenes about, he doesn't want Jude, and the others to hang with them or follow them around in their day again. I want to make it clear that like Jude wasn't one of the people who were stalking Nikki and Jonesy on their date. So Caitlin, Jen, and Wyatt were more hesitant about this relationship, but Jude was the one who supported this. But I'm confused by this bit when Nikki refused to go on this date. All four of them seemed relieved. Like, I can understand Caitlin, Jen, and Wyatt being relieved, but I don't understand why Jude is relieved. He's the one who wants this to happen, and he seems to be, like, supportive of Jonesy and Nikki. Anyway, Jonesy tries to push harder for this date, but Nikki puts her foot down. She's not going on a Valentine's Day with Jonesy. Besides, Nikki points out that she doesn't have to, kiss someone on the 14th of February just to have fun. And I say that's good on her. And besides, she might hang out with the girls. However, this backfires because Kaylin and Jen have found some dates and are probably seeking out for other guys for dates. This bit I found interesting. Caitlin and Jen, find some two boys who seem to be rugby players. I assumed rugby was a British thing, and I thought it was like a British word for American football, but I guess it's not. Maybe it's a different thing in Canada. I did like Caitlin's line though. I thought it was funny. It's kind of her Ditsy moment. It's where she says that does do the guys play in a big rug, and I thought that was really hilarious. And Jen tried to save this by saying that Caitlin was joking. The next scene is at Splendus, and Wyatt is debating to give whether she needs to give milk chocolate or dark chocolate to Serena. But if I was Wyatt, I would give like a box of chocolate with multiple different chocolates. So, Serena gets more than one. He then overhears Serena and Charmaine's conversation. I think Serena is talking about a customer to Charmaine. She says that a customer says, which CD seems romantic? A guy playing an acoustic guitar or a pan flute? And both Serena and Charmaine seem disgusted by it. I mean, I can see their point of view though. It may seem romantic if a guy, plays an acoustic guitar or a pan flute, but I think, that's been overdone these days. So Serena and Charmaine continue with the conversation. Serena states that, the customer was nice, but she mentions that guys like these people turn into mushy gushy feast in Valentine's Day. And both Serena and Charmaine some seem to think that, a guy giving flowers and chocolate seems tacky. In their eyes, it seems like an unoriginal thing. I mean, I can get it. Like, if you're giving your date flowers and chocolate, are you really putting that much effort? Wyatt hears this, and he is the one who was planning to give Serena flowers and chocolate, and it seems to me that he's not happy with his decisions. It's time for Wyatt to abort his mission. I mean, he can still go for the date thing. My idea is that why not just go for a date with Serena? Make it nice and nice and inviting for her. You don't have to go extravagant with all those flowers and chocolates. I did like the next part of the scene. It's where Wyatt's admiring Serena, but it seemed like to the old man. Wyatt was doing this to Jason, dog toy standee. I'm like, yes, Wyatt is secretly into dog toy. But the old man did have to ruin it with his reaction towards it. Like calling Wyatt for, admiring Jason from dog toy. I mean, what was weird about that? Jen and Caitlin continue, searching for a guy to date. They try to catch the greeter girls from Albatross and Finch. Caitlin and Jen, looking out for boys is like, a fisherman looking out for a fish. So Caitlin and Jen try to, ask out the greeter gods. However, they refuse and say it's an image thing. So it seems like greeter gods would feel embarrassed to be seen by them. Rightfully so, Caitlin and Jen storm off for this and call them jerks. But I did find Caitlin and Jen's reaction to this really funny though. But honestly, the whole thing with Caitlin and Jen looking for guys is my favorite part of this episode. In the next part of the scene, we're with Jonesy and Jude. Jonesy is doing a money-making scheme where he is, doing a bid where winning a date with Jonesy. So I guess this is kind of a job for Jonesy. It's kind of like what Jude is doing with, Sticker. It's not like a typical job, he's getting hired by someone. This is like Jonesy's made up job. It's like a money making scheme, I guess. So I guess this is like a self-employed thing. Just for, Valentine's Day. So he's trying to, hopefully, getting a chick to go out with him. Hopefully, they pay to, go out with him. I don't know. I find this kind of questionable. Like, Jonesy is 16 years old and he's doing this self employed thing in the mall. Like, people are, paying to go out with him, which, I don't find questionable, but like, he's 16 and I think the customers who, plan to go out with him, seem like over 18. And how is this accepted in the mall? Wouldn't Ron not accept this? I think Jonesy is the type of person, would have OnlyFans. Which I'm not shaming. If you have OnlyFans, go for it. But I'm just saying that, he's 16 years old. And this dating thing is kind of like a real life version of an OnlyFans. I hope that sinks in. So basically, Jonesy is going out with prostitutes, on Valentine's Day. And then Wyatt does some damage control for his date. He cancels the dinner reservation, and Hero kind of isn't happy about this, and he's kind of aggressive towards Wyatt. I think that's like an overreaction from Hero. I think it's kind of abnormal way to respond when someone wants to cancel a dinner reservation. Like, it's not uncommon for your customers to cancel your plans. I'm just saying, Hero's kind of being unprofessional about this. And in a similar situations, it seems like Wyatt, wants to cancel his order for the flowers. And the guy at the flower shop, is kind of aggressive as well, and is throwing flowers at Wyatt. Which I do think is an unreasonable reaction from this guy. Wyatt's only like 15 years old. Like, don't throw things at him. If I was Wyatt, I would get those people sued for this. Especially for the guy, throwing, flowers at him. So the next part of the scene, Caitlin and Jan still, search for boys for the Valentine's Day. I do find that bit really funny. In that bit, it seems to me that Jen and Caitlin were looking through the arcade, and it seems like Jen and Caitlin were asking 12-year-olds, at least according to Jen. This part I didn't think it was questionable. I just thought it was funny. Just that's all. It seems like they're desperate enough to go after like boys much younger than them. They're even desperate enough to fight over Darth, and I also thought that was funny as well. Jude and Jonesy continue to do the winner date with Jonesy. I did like Jude's part where, like, when he's speaking in a loudspeaker and she's pointing out Jonesy's faults. I thought that was funny as well as when Josie tells Jude to say something positive, but Jude says it's better than being alone. So it's kind of positive, but it's also kind of a backhanded compliment towards Jonesy. But it seems like no one has made an effort for this. That's because the starting bid is $200. And I doubt anyone just has $200 with them. So Jude and Wyatt suggest the starting bid should be $20, like $20. I mean, that's a good business strategy anyway. Like, start with low and then you get to rise up. So, we're back at the lemon, and, Wyatt explains what he did, towards Caitlin and Jen about Serena. He canceled the dinner reservation. He took back the flowers, and he canceled the chocolates and the cards as well. Okay, he did all that, but what was his plan for his date with Serena for Valentine's Day? Like, what was he going to do next? I'm not sure if he thought that far of his plan. But then Caitlin and Jen say something really confusing. Caitlin and Jen explain like you shouldn't always believe what a girl says. And according to them, girls don't always say what they mean. I mean, what? I never heard this before. And is this true? Do girls, say what they don't mean? What does that mean? Is this saying that girls are dishonest when they're speaking about something? I did not understand that at all. But then, Caitlin asks if guys, say what they mean. And, like, Wyatt says yes. And, I mean, I don't speak for all guys, but for me, I always say what I mean. I mean, I guess that checks out. But I did not understand that at all. So does Serena likes those things or not? But how does Caitlin and Jen know? They only know what Wyatt has told them. It's not like Caitlin and Jen, had a conversation with him as well. So listening to Jen and Caitlin, Wyatt tries to damage control the damage control by, rebooking the restaurant and everything. But if those restaurants, aren't gonna, rebook things for you, I would suggest if Wyatt could, plan a picnic or something. Or why doesn't, Caitlin, open her lemon so Serena and Wyatt can, have their date with each other. Anyway, next part of the scene, Jude and Jonesy are, have managed to, get some girls, signing up for the bid. It seems like the strategy is working now. I bet Jonesy was hoping for those two being, his date. Just so you know, I think the decisions that are made afterwards are worse. Meanwhile, I think Hero needs to be, put in, a jail or something, have his business shut down because, as soon as Wyatt, try to rebook the restaurant, Hero, just gets really aggressive and throws things at him. I also wonder if this is kind of like a racial stereotype of angry, Asian man throwing things at Wyatt. I find this distasteful. In the next part of the scene, Jude and Jonesy are still continuing with their money making scheme. Oh boy, oh no. We have this bit. Yummy Mummy decides to, place her part of the bit. Call the police, please. Like, this isn't accidental. The Yummy Mummy is actively, grooming Jonesy right here. I don't know how old she is, but she is definitely much older than, Jonesy. And Jonesy, is definitely a 16-year-old. Someone lock this cougar up right away. This woman makes me feel sick. Anyway, in the next part of the scene, Kaylin and Jen, seem to give up on finding a boy for, their date. And it seems like, Jen, Caitlin, and Nikki, will plan to hang out with each other without her boy. But this time, Jen doesn't give up and she has an idea. Jen and Caitlin appear in front of Spindis, and, Jen catches something in her eye, and it's a standee of Jason. So Jen tells, Caitlin to faint in front of everyone. And, Jen calls out for help. And then Chad, comes over to help Caitlin. While he's doing that, Jen sneakily takes away Jason's standee. I mean, did no one notice Jen stealing this huge standee right beside them? And then for the next bit, Julie comes over at, Jonesy's money making scheme, and she places her bet. And right now, Julie places $55 for her bid, putting her at the top. But the thing is, Jonesy doesn't, find Julie all that attractive, and she does sneeze on Jonesy, which is gross. I did find this funny though. Meanwhile, at the Lemon, Jen, Caitlin, and Nikki, have Jason Standy as their date. And Caitlin makes a good point about the Standy. It's cute, it's charming, and he won't say anything stupid. Which I can't, argue with. I can agree with this. But this makes me think of a situation a few episodes back where Jude, had a crush on this chair. I guess these guys need to, apologize to Jude for, making judgments towards him. Because makes them a hypocrite if they, falling in love with a standee. But I love this. Jan, Nikki, and Caitlin hanging out with fake Jason. This is so fun. And for the next scene, the cowboy places his bid, and we find out his name. His name is Mac, which is great. It seems like Mac is into guys, which we appreciate. In general, I would appreciate if there were more LGBTQ characters in, kids media. That would be, really wholesome and great for other people. However, I did find uncomfortable about the scene. First of all, I think same thing with Yummy Mummy. I think Mac is like much older than Jonesy, so I also think this is kind of a questionable decision of having Mac dating Jonesy, who was like 16 years old. This is what I was worried before. Like, this is practically like real life version of OnlyFans, which I'm not judging. But here, Jonesy is like 16 years old, and like older people like Yummy Mummy and Mark, they are placing their bid. I'm just not. I'm just surprised, like Ron the Renter Cop hasn't shut this place down, because this is kind of um, grooming minors. And also, I don't know, this also feels kind of homophobic. Okay, I understand, like, Jonesy is probably into girls, he's not into guys. And I understand that you can be into whoever you want. But this is kind of uncomfortable because, like, I don't know, if someone was like homosexual and saw this, would feel like they would think this is kind of like humiliation towards them. And I don't know, this is kind of a wrong move for the show to make. I just think that, making sexuality as that joke is kind of like a wrong move for the show to make. Like to this day, homosexual people still get bullied by people around them, and I feel like things like this, makes it worse. You kind of have to, notice like this is, aimed towards kids, and kids are kind of like impressionable people. I feel like when you're presenting things like this, going to have to be sensitive towards these like minority people. So Jonesy is like straight, and he basically doesn't want to go out with Mac either. Same way as he doesn't want to go out with Julie. And Jude and Wyatt, make fun of Jonesy for this, and they do make a statement that like there's nowhere in the sign that says girls only. And even if Jonesy would put that up there, Jade makes a statement that Jonesy could get shut down for making discrimination against boys. But I'm just saying, if if Jonesy's gonna get shut down for discrimination towards boys, I'm sure he's gonna get shut down for for homophobia, or possibly being underage for getting cougars dating him. We then have one of my favorite parts of this episode. It's where Jen, Nikki, and Caitlin just pig out with, Jason. I just love this. This is so wholesome. It's cute. I love it. And you know what? Why don't they? I think this is like a treat to them, and they deserve it after all the whole episode. And I did get hungry for this. Nikki is eating crisp. Kayla's eating some chicken wings, and Jen is eating some ice cream. And they just mess around with Jason, the standee. I like the bit where, Jen is throwing ice cream towards Jason. That was funny too. It's just goofy banter, which I love. And this makes me think of a scene from Friends. It's where Rachel, Monica, and Phoebe, they would wear like wedding dress, and they would just lounge around and have fun. I like things like this where you're just having fun, spontaneity. Yes, I love this. Back at the lemon, Jen, Kaylin, and Nikki are still pigging out, with Jason. And Jen makes an interesting statement. She says that, being single on Valentine's Day really rocks. And they don't have to, waste, all their money on, like, pointless presents. I guess that's a good mantra to live by. I would support this all the way. But this would be better if they had like Jason, buy all the food for them. Perhaps they can get like a random guy to buy new outfits for them. And I say yes to all of this. Meanwhile, at Spindus, Wyatt finally finds out what to give to Serena, and it seems to be a CD where, it's where like Serena doesn't know all the songs that, Wyatt puts, so he used all that in his CD. I guess the moral of the story is like maybe instead of big fancy things, Wyatt could just give a gift that means something to Serena. I also think it's interesting that in this show CDs are a thing, and this show was around like 2000s, and it's bringing me back the days where like people would have CDs and you burn music in the CDs. Nowadays you can listen to music in like an MP3 player, iPod, or Spotify. I think spin this right now. They would not be selling CDs right now. At the moment, they would have things like Apple Store or something like that. I remember though back in the day, like music shops used to be a real thing back in the when I was a kid. I remember one shop where they would like sell instruments and everything else. Now it doesn't exist. There seems to be less music shops nowadays. So while Wyatt gives Serena like a CD, Serena gives Wyatt like a teddy bear, and it's really cute. Age gap aside, I did think that was cute. There's 7 minutes left, and Josie has to make a decision fast. He has to decide between Mac and Julie. But what happened to the other candidates, like Yummy Mummy and the two girls who was with them? Josie is really desperate and he really needs a hot girl for a date tonight. And then he catches someone in his eye. It's the hot dog vendor girl, and we've seen her before in Caitlin's date with Kyle. Josie tried to hit on her, but Josie smelled like pig back in that day. And according to her, Josie and this girl, seem to have dated before, and it seems like Josie forgot about it. So I'm guessing, this girl is planning to have a date with Jonesy just for a revenge or something. So if she plans to have a date with Jonesy, she plans to have a rom com marathon with him, and he wants him to wear a prom dress in front of everyone, and she wants him to give her dog a pedicure. All that because, he forgot her name. It's 15 seconds left, and Josie has to make a decision. Julie, Cowboy, and the hot dog girl are fighting over Jonesy. He begs either Caitlin, Jen, or Nikki to help him out. He calls out to Nikki to help him out with his predicament. Well, Nikki has two things. Number one, Nikki doesn't have to pay for Jonesy for the date. Jonesy is complaining about this, but he has to expect the sacrifice. He doesn't actually think that Nikki is gonna pay to go out with Jonesy. And for that reason, I think it backfires because since Nikki's not gonna pay to go out with him, Jonesy is not getting the money, so this his money making scheme kind of foils. And secondly, Jonesy has to do everything Nikki has to say. And you know what? I agree with Nikki. Let him do everything Nikki tells him to do. I do think it's cold, but I'm on Nikki's side for this. Like a bet is a bet. So after Josie, accepts the deal, Nikki heads over to the booth, and she places her bid. She places $20,000 for the bid, placing her at the top, and she wins. So Nikki and the girls make Josie wear like a mask of Jason from Dog Toy. Kind of creepy looking, I have to say. Josie, starts, feeding them food, fries, and then, he gives them back massages. They continue with humiliating Josie, which I approve. This is kind of funny. They try to take pictures, with Jonesy at a photo booth. Ron tried to, try to inspect this, thinking this is suspicious. But, realizing that they are humiliating Jonesy, he lets them go get away with it. I have to say, I do like Ron in the first season. I think he's like a cool dude. I think he's the type I would give like a fist bump to. So far, I haven't had a bad thing to say about Ron. So far, he has been really funny. The time when he was a co-worker with Jonesy, and they were just like goofing off with each other as cops, and he there was that time where Ron and Jonesy were in a photo booth, and they were with this criminal, and they were making fun of him. And there was that other time, Ron was in a talent competition at the Idol thing. What can I say? Like Ron the Rent a Cop is a cool dude, and I like the voice actor who portrays Ron. They then go to the movies together, but midway through the movies, Josie, has to go to the bathroom, but the girls don't let him go. But if he went, what if he needed licorice and he wasn't there? You know what? I think that's a good point. And this thing ends at the lemon where Josie, picks out food and napkins for the girls. And few moments in this, they notice Wyatt and Serena dating with each other, and I think Jan, Caitlin, and Nikki, they're kind of finding it cute. But I did like Nikki's line here. She says that they both have mustard on their noses, kind of ruining the cute moment. But I did like Nikki's line over there. Like she says, um, a good man is hard to find, but if you get one for free, she highly recommends it. And you know what? I recommend it to you. And Caitlin and Jan seem to agree with her. And I do too. And at the end, it's all over. Josie says that, he feels sorry for the girls who placed their bid and didn't get to go out with him. I think he's talking about the two girls who placed the bid. And it seems like Nikki, Caitlin, and Jan really enjoyed the moment for their Valentine's Day, with Josie pretending to be Jason. And they're hoping to have this moment again. And Wyatt seems to have enjoyed his day with Serena too. And I guess that's it. Roll the end credits. And that's it. I guess, I'm done reviewing the episode. And it's time to give my summaries by pointing out my favorite and my least favorite thing about this episode. One thing I will say, this is one of the good contenders of the episodes from 16. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun. My favorite moments in this episode, well, I have so many, and it has to do with like Caitlyn, Jan, and Nikki, especially like when Caitlyn and Jan has been like going off of many dates. Like, well, the first one where they were asking out two guys, but Caitlyn didn't know what rugby was. I thought that was a funny joke. And the second time is when Caitlyn and Jen were asking out the greeter guards, but the greeter guards were being rude, and I did find that Caitlyn and Jen's reaction towards it really funny. And I like the idea that Caitlyn and Jen were seeking out the arcade, looking for 12-year-olds to date with, and then they're desperate enough to date with Darth. And then Caitlyn, Jen, and Nikki hanging out with each other with Jason has been so fun. And I found it fun, like Caitlyn, Jen, and Nikki, making Jonesy pretending to be Jason, and they're going all of, they're doing so much things with him, and Ron lets them get away with it. All of those things have been fun for me. But if I had to point one of those things as my favorite, which one would it be? I think out of those things, my personal favorite would have to be where Caitlyn and Jen fighting over Darth, and as well as it's just the thought of Caitlyn and Jen being desperate enough to go out with 12-year-olds in the arcade. I thought that was hilarious. And it's time to point out my least favorite moment in this episode. And that has to be where, um, I think it's the homophobia in this episode. Okay, maybe it's not homophobia, they weren't being rude about a homosexual person, but I feel this show in general is making fun of homosexual people, or making it a joke, making sexuality as a joke. Look, I am aware that people have preferences, and I'm fine with those. If you're into girls, if you're into guys, that's great. If you're not into them, that's great too. I just think how the show goes about this, Jonesy not into guys. Okay, he doesn't need to, but his reaction towards it is so over the top. I think. I'm less blaming Jonesy in this. I'm more blaming the writers in this. That's where my frustration lies. I'm not even mad at Jonesy. I just think the the feeling I have overall of the show about sexuality. That's where I'm not so comfortable with. Must I forget that episode where Jonesy and Wyatt were going out with these two girls, and the girls thought they were gay, and Jonesy and Wyatt's reaction was way over the top. That's the thing, though. It's when like Jonesy and Wyatt get exaggerated, or like a character gets exaggerated when they find out like someone's gay or something, or when they someone when they are thought they are gay, or like someone has attraction to them and they are gay. And considering like homosexual people are like marginalized groups, and people bully them to this day, I find it like really uncomfortable to like sit through. Anyway, those are my favorites and my least favorite parts of this episode. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and have a lovely day.